And whenever I'm back here in Sarawak, I always want to start with one thing. And if my eyes, I'm getting older, is correct, when I say this, I'll hear a reverberation coming back to me, if there are many Sarawakians in this August hall. So I'm going to try this. Ooh-ha! You see? That's why they give me 5 engineers. I'm the only one who'll do this kind of thing. My name is Kamarul. I'm from Astro AWANI. Thank you so much to SEB and the organizing committee for allowing me to be here. Tan Sri Michelle Yeoh said that she's a friendly sister to Sarawak. I would like to call myself a friendlier, adopted, not wanted child of Sarawak, who was born somewhere else. Because this is the biggest state, or someone remind me to say region. I'm from the smallest one called Perlis. But the issues are the same. We have one country, we have one region, we have one world. If we do not go sustainable, we are not going to make it for the future generations. So today, thank you to the editorial team of SAREF for putting me for the first time ever with 5 great, well-known engineers by profession who are the who's who of renewable energy, whether it's finance or design or just about grids and interconnectivity. So I'm going to introduce my far right, who's going to start the ball rolling with his presentation, is Kwan Nan, the head of ASEAN and South Asia for Global Energy Interconnection Development and Cooperation Organization, or GITCO. What that means is, if he does his job well and his company does it well, all their KPIs, the electricity we're using might be from northern China, for example. You know, it's borderless, it's connected, and it can be exported. And then, of course, if we don't talk about money and finance, hydroelectric, you know, is a big long-term project. So Takafumi Kadono, senior energy specialist at the World Bank Group, but don't let his J-pop rock star image fool you. He's also a very qualified football coach. Go and stalk him on social media, you can see that. And last but not least, just to ensure that this very radical talk show anchor and journalist doesn't go away from hydroelectric and Sarawak, is Polycarp Wong. I'm just kidding. He's a very, very well-experienced engineer who have looked at renewable and hydro power energy for the longest time, and he's the vice president of Hydro of Sarawak Energy. We'll come to the, rockstar discussion session. That's 30 minutes after each has presented for 10 minutes. So without further ado, Kwan Nan, can you do us the honors?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Kwan Nan. It's a great honor for me to be here and to be invited to such a beautiful city, Kuching, and to present our findings on behalf of GIDCO. And so actually, in order to cope with climate change and address global sustainable development in clean and low carbon way, GIDCO has carried out our relevant researches on global and continental levels, which cover economic and social issue, climate, clean energy development, electricity, and our research provides a technical solution and action roadmap for global sustainable development from the perspective of energy and electricity. The study focuses on clean replacement, electricity replacement, and regional interconnection. Asia is the largest continent, which covers one-third and land area of the world. For Asia energy interconnection research, 46 countries were considered and grouped into 5 regions basing on the geographical locations and grades. As an important engine of world's economic development, Asia has a good development foundation. GDP in Asia reached $26.6 trillion in 2016, Accounting for 1/3 of the world's total, the GDP per capita reached $6,020. Asia contributed about 6% of global GDP growth. The population reaches 4.4 billion, 6% of the global total, which remarkable demographic divided. Asia also shows highly complementary industrial structure and intra-regional trade dependency. In 2016, Asia's intra-regional trade shares is 57.3%. And also, Asia has abundant energy resources. The reserve of coal, oil, and gas take up over 50% of the world. As to the clean energy, hydro, solar, and wind energy resources account for 46%, 25%, and 21% of the world total, respectively. For Southeast Asia, Indochina Peninsula will upgrade and construct UHV AC power grids. The Malay archipelago will maintain 3 regional AC grid structure in the western, central, and the eastern areas. Interregionally, there will be interconnected with China to achieve seasonal complementarily to import electricity in dry season and export electricity in wet season. The transmission project will be built to deliver hydropower from Myanmar to India. A DC project will be built to accept the solar energy from Australia. So the general pattern of Asia-Europe-Africa interconnection. The land area, population, and GDP of the 3 continents combined take up more than 2/3 of the global total. Power grid interconnection among the 3 continents will build a platform to promote co-development and obtain benefit due to the differences in resources, time zones, seasons, and prices. So we have analyzed the benefits from the economic, social, environmental, and the political aspects. For example, by 2050, the construction of Asia Energy interconnection will create 149 million jobs opportunities. It's expected to basically address the problem of without electricity by increasing the electricity penetration rate. Emissions from the energy system fell to 6.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year in 2050. Meanwhile, building Asia Energy interconnection will help establish political mutual trust and promote coordinated development within the continent.
Takafumi Cardano, or Taka, since you know the Japanese are well famed for being precise, especially in timing, so please save me 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you.
I'll be talking about something a little bit different. It's on financing of hydropower, but I'll be touching on the things that the previous speakers have touched on as well. I don't want to be too World Bank centric about this, but let me just start with emphasizing or just announcing that the World Bank is in the hydropower space. We have been providing both assistance on the sovereign side to the governments, as well as that IFC is our sister institution on the private sector side, International Finance Corporation. So in recent years, in the past 2 decades, there has been a growth in hydropower investments. Nonetheless, and this, you know, the session is not just about hydropower, it's about renewable energy as well. And in our climate change action plan, we do emphasize the need to support more actively in the renewable energy space in general, and also to provide mechanisms so that variable renewable energies such as solar and wind can be better integrated into the system. A bit outdated, but in 2010 we adopted these directions in hydropower, and I'm not going to go through this, but for me at least, number 2, promoting good practice is very important, and that is probably the main reason the World Bank Group is involved in hydropower. And it touches on the environment and the social issues that Karen just mentioned in her presentation as well. And relevant to this panel is that regional angle, which is number 4. We believe, as you may have seen in the previous presentations, there is a potential for hydropower to promote regional interconnection and economic cooperation. So that's how we identify where hydro is in the energy space. With respect to financing, sorry, I forgot to mention the source. I think this comes from the IHA. They have reported that 27% of new hydro capacity over the last decade was added by the private sector, and 90% of the largest hydro projects were exclusively financed by the public sector. So this is in stark contrast to all the other renewables like solar and wind in particular, where globally most of them are financed privately. So I guess this is where we come back to why there's not so much private sector interest or financing in hydropower. And I guess these are issues that are always discussed, and I think many of you know about this already, but just grouped it into 4: technical, financial, environment, social, and government. Working on not only hydros, but other generation and power projects over the years, I think for hydro, what is very unique is that this long gestation period, and anything can happen, right? So that is kind of a risk that sponsors and lenders have to take, and sometimes they do not have the appetite for that. And of course, on the environment and social side, I should not stereotype, but many projects are in the mountains where you may still have that environment that you want to protect, and potentially indigenous peoples. So in projects that the World Bank Group is involved in, we take this very seriously, and I know that there are lenders out there who have signed up to the Equator Principles to uphold that high standards. And then, of course, you have the government risks, but and this could be amplified because of that long gestation period as well. And here's where I'm going to talk about what the World Bank does, because I think the next session you have real bankers coming in, so I'm just going to tell you what the World Bank as a development institution does to facilitate, in this case, private sector investment in general. We have the upstream facilities called the PF, Public-Private Infrastructure Advisory Facility, and the Global Infrastructure Facility. They provide support to the government to build that enabling environment to attract private sector investment, and not only in hydro or just power, but in other sectors as well, such as transport or water supply, or even clinics or in education. So that's what we do. I'm just going to jump to the other one. This is more hydro-specific. Our colleagues have launched this hydropower preparation facility, acknowledging that long lead time and the amount of upfront development cost that is necessary by government as well as the private sector as well. And for this gives the World Bank Group an entry point early on so that we can persuade and make investors and governments comply with that higher standard, on, especially on the environment, social, but also on the technical in terms of dam safety, as well as the governance mechanism around it.
The threats to financing, funding, and the feasibility of the long gestation period in financing hydropower, large hydropower projects there. So how do you look at not only the transmission lines, smart grid, the UHV connectivity, but also 90% publicly funded? We all know in our country, Malaysia, 5 years is actually a short period politically. So how do you factor in large financing for a riskier world in terms of disruption of climate change? the mood of the people to long stay with large expenditure when the current pressures on cost of living and everything else. So how does World Bank look at this? Because World Bank funds projects of large hydropower, meaning it believes in growth, catalyzing it through these projects. But more and more we're seeing a lot of complaints from the grassroots and a lot of risk coming from the people, society and politics on this.
Okay, well, that's a big question. But, well, I am, and the World Bank is quite agnostic about which technology is the best, or there is no best technology. There needs to be a optimized generation mix of various technologies, and we can discuss that, more technical forum. But hydropower continues to have a role to play, and therefore, and it's not just the larger hydros, the small hydros as well. Okay. And that's why we continue to support. But we also work on the upstream to help governments and utilities come with this least cost generation planning, and also to come with ways to ensure that the environment social impacts are mitigated as much as possible or minimized.
Okay.
And just quickly, it really is to find a way to internalize such adverse externalities.
Welcome to Sarawak, to our guests. Please spend the next 2 days here and relish our dishes like laksa Sarawak and curry fish head. My esteemed co-speakers, they have talked about grid interconnection, the Australian experience and pump storage to hydropower development, as well as finance. I would like to bring us back to closer to home, to Sarawak, something that we know more intimate about. I will be talking about hydropower and SCO. SCO is an acronym for Sarawak Corridor of Renewable Energy. SCO was developed by the Sarawak government to propel Sarawak's economy to new heights by harnessing the abundant hydropower potential we have in Sarawak. The core objectives of SCO are, very importantly, to create new sources of wealth, move the state economy up the value chain, achieve higher per capita income, enhance the quality of life, to achieve balanced regional development, and most importantly, and this is the first SDG goal, which is to eradicate poverty. We can do this because we have abundant hydropower potential. In Sarawak here, Sarawak Energy, over the last 30 years, have developed 3 hydropowers. One of them we acquired from the federal government. Beginning from 1985, we built the Batangaya HEP hydroelectric plant with a capacity of 100 megawatt. Today, 100 megawatt may sound like a small number, but back then, it accounts for almost half of the Kuching load. Through the years, we developed and we were able to build successfully the Murum hydropower electric plant. Together with Bakun, it adds up to about 3,500 megawatt, which accounts for more than 70% of our generation capacity. Learning from all these 3 projects, we are now working on constructing Balai, which will come on stream in 2026. Having learned all of the lessons, we are now making sure that we build a better dam, including supporting the indigenous and local communities around Bali. All of our dams are developed according to ICO principles and guidelines, and they are built and operated safely, efficiently, economically, and are environmentally and socially equitable. Sarawak Energy aspires to be the regional green core. Our aspiration is to build a Borneo grid throughout Borneo and be the hydropower storage for the island and beyond. We have the aspiration to provide energy to Philippines, to West Malaysia, to Java, and we have already taken a small step with a very big footprint. We are now connected to Bengkayan in Kalimantan, Indonesia, supplying them on average 200 megawatt of power. The aspiration here is to interconnect Borneo so that we can together harness our resources and share them so that there is less pressure to plant up with non-renewable sources, from non-renewable sources. Sarawak Energy's regional role as a green core then, this small step that I spoke about just now, but with a very big footprint, has led us to help Indonesia lower their carbon footprint. In the last 2 to 3 years that we export power to Indonesia, we are able to help them lower their tonnage of carbon dioxide by 1.8 million ton carbon dioxide. And we hope that with this aspiration that we have, we can continue to help green the region and subsequently the world around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Well, this is the rain and rainier season. This is Sarawak. This is the wet and wetter. But let me get this straight. I'm just a layman trying to understand from 5 great engineers. The whole point about hydropower, not only does it reduce the carbon tonnage and footprint, but it is the cheapest energy feasibly built, done, and transmitted for this region, Sarawak, Malaysia, Southeast Asia. Is that the main point that we can recognize from this discussion? Any takers? Polly, you want to start?
Mr. James Ng's presentation in the morning, he has a chart to show that large hydro, compared to all the other fuel sources, is the lowest in terms of cost per unit. So Sarawak has this potential, and the government has this aspiration to harness it, to improve, to bring more development to the state. And with this development and increased wealth, which can then be used for the people of Sarawak as a whole.
Not only that, it will also generate much needed income for the state by virtue of being exported to other neighboring areas.
And at the same time help them with their carbon footprint.
Theoretically, if we have the ASEAN Grid, as I saw on one of the slides, if Peninsula, for example, chose not to build any more dams, for hydropower is okay, because I could get them from countries or regions of the world in Asia that has more feasibility, willing to sacrifice their environment, for example, to build this hydropower dam. I can just take from them. How is that thinking? How feasible is that? And when will we see an ubiquity of interconnectivity of our grid lines in Asia?
Yes, thank you, moderator. That's a good question. Actually, the GEI, the Global Energy Interconnection, is based on that concept. Renewable energy resources is not balanced all around the world. This country, maybe they have something hydropower. That country may have some solar power, and another country, they have nothing. So actually, the GEI, the global interconnection, that give the country, they give them choices to produce locally or buy from a long distance far away. So you just mentioned the hydropower, but actually we thought the Southeast Asia is a generation center of the hydropower.
Okay.
So actually, from GuideCo's viewpoint, for example, the solar power, if you construct some solar power station here, from GuideCo's viewpoint, it's not that worse. You can just try to buy it from Australia or from Middle East through long distance and ultra high wattage power transmission lines.
Yeah.
There. But the key problem is not about the technique.
Okay.
Actually, in China, we have already constructed more than 20, just 20 UHV transmission lines, continuously transmit the renewable energy from west part of China to east part. The technical, there's no problem. Actually, the main problem is maybe the mutual trust between countries.